Welcome to Travel Secrets with me, Tanya Rose, the podcast sharing wisdom for fellow travellers. Each week, I ask my guests to reveal their 6 travel secrets and the holidays and adventures that surround them. I would just like to say thank you to Mason Rose, the sales and communication agency that represents some of the finest hotels around the world, for partnering with Travel Secrets, the podcast. Today, my guest is the lovely British Ghanaian actress Rosalind Eleazar. Famed for so many wonderful things, but most recently for Slow Horses and Missing You, which you were sensational in. I watched one episode and then sat up all night binging all 5.
Oh, gosh.
And if you haven't watched it, listeners, you have to watch it. It is absolutely fantastic. We went to the same school, Gordonston.
We did.
many, many years apart. But I'm so pleased to meet a fellow OG, as we're called.
Yeah.
The famous school. And I had a fantastic time, and I'm sure you did too.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear your travel secrets. Welcome, lovely Ros.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Before we get into your travel secrets, perhaps you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and how travel has impacted you. Did you travel when you were young? Let's just talk about travel and you, and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I think I had a sort of unusual upbringing in the sense that my mum traveled a lot for work, and she was a single mother. As you mentioned, I'm British Ghanaian, and my father lived in Ghana. So it was really just my mother and myself. And so a lot of my holidays were actually spent going on business trips with her. So some of my earliest memories are of Karachi, Pakistan. You know, we'd spent a lot of time there, or Malaysia, or Japan, and Greece, because it was the company that she still works for. You know, bless her, she's 75 now. She's still going strong. She worked for the same company for 56 years. Is a Greek shipping company. So a lot of my time was spent in Greece, and for me really is I was going to say my second home, but in some ways I sort of feel like it's my first home, and that's where I sort of feel the most at ease and most comfortable. And my godparents are Greek, and my mum has a place there, and even so much that I used to call my grandmother Yaya, which is the Greek word for grandmother. Or I used to call her Yaya because I couldn't do the Greek accent when I was when I was younger, or how to pronounce it properly. So I think for me, travel is one of the most important things in my life. And I can't really say that, although we lived in London, I never really spent that much time in London. I was always somewhere else in the world, experiencing new cultures, even, and of course, let's not forget Ghana, which I went to every year. So I've experienced many different cultures from a very young age, and a lot of my mother's friends are from all different places. There's not a set group. We're not, they're not predominantly British. They're from all over the world. So I feel like I grew up in quite a multicultural society. Even if some of them did live in the UK, they were from, as I said, Malaysia or...
How wonderful.
Yeah.
What a great way to grow up. Amazing. Yeah. Do you speak Greek?
I should speak more than I do, but I was quite shy when I was young. So I would listen. I understand the majority of Greek, but I'm fine when, I can get by. But I
can
really
say Yasu Uzo. I think Arabimor means I love you, because I think my first kiss or something was a Greek boy. And, I think it is Arabimor, isn't it?
That's my darling.
Oh, my darling, something like that.
Yeah.
And actually, I read a hilarious thing about you having your first kiss with a Greek boy.
Yes.
That was really funny.
Yes. A lot of my kisses have been on the island of Greece.
I think they all probably are as we grow up, aren't they? How fabulous.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Let's get into your travel secrets then. So what is the number one destination you think everyone should go to once in their lifetime?
I found this question so hard. I felt like I was cheating on all the different countries if I was picking the wrong one. And, I'd probably say Colombia. I spent a year in Central and South America. I was studying Spanish and Chinese at, as you do. At university, and so I spent a long time there, and I really fell in love with the culture, and the music and the people and the food and the landscape. But Colombia was a country that I didn't go to because at that time, like a lot of parents, I would imagine, they didn't want you to go to what they thought was quite a dangerous country.
Yeah.
And so about 5 years ago, I went with my husband, and when my mum couldn't say anything to me anymore.
Too old.
Yeah, I'm too old. I'm going there. And I was just so taken aback by how different it was to what I had imagined it would be. Particularly Medellín, or Medellín, which, they say Medellín, but however you want to pronounce it. That particular city was, I think, the murder capital of the world.
Was it? Wow.
At one point. And obviously it was home to Pablo Escobar and all the drug-related problems that they had at that time. But I was particularly surprised about how much the people of Colombia have completely transformed their narrative into a really positive, new, vibrant experience that you have when you're there. And there's this particular place called Comuna 13, which was probably the most dangerous part of Colombia, and it's high up on the hills, and you sort of take a bus up there, and is it slightly a tourist trap now? Maybe, but when I went, it still was sort of okay, and you're taken around by a local resident that lives there, rather than a tour guide and they explain to you the history of the violence that they've experienced, and they've changed this place where it still has some bullet holes around it.
Blood on the wall.
It's great. I can't wait to go there. Into this really electric place where and it's it had so much art and music and green mango ice cream with lime and salt, which is a
sounds delicious
delicacy of Comuna 13. But also large, Colombia itself, you have the Salento coffee area, and you learn about how the production of coffee from bean to cup, and the way that they drink it, and the way that they produce it, and all sorts of those things, and Tayrona National Park, which was one of the most beautiful national parks that I think I've ever been to. And you sort of do a 3-hour trek in the jungle. And as I said, I went with my partner, and you sort of park at the beginning of the park, and you take this wonderful walk through this park with lots of monkeys and birds and all sorts of things, and then you go past little beaches on your way to the final location, which is called La Piscina, which is just the most incredible beach and water that you could ever imagine. But anyway, so we trekked for 3 hours, and my partner has a habit of breaking something. Whatever holiday that we're on. Yes. There's always something that happens to him. And on this particular trip, we got off and we finally made it to La Piscina, and he rolled on his ankle and he completely sprained it. And there's no way that you can
get in or out.
There's no way you can get in or out. And I don't know why, we didn't bring any money into the jungle because we didn't think we needed any money to be in the jungle. What are you going to do with money in the jungle? So, he's sort of in so much pain, and I'm sort of running around seeing if I could find some ice. Yeah, just something. And eventually, someone helped us, and they put him on a horse back to the. But we didn't have any money, so they were doing that as a favor. So I was sprinting behind this horse. So he was on a horse. I was sprinting behind him, and I've got asthma, and I was just like, and I was so tired. Can you imagine that? This is 3 hours back. Obviously, on the horse, it's a lot quicker, but it's not that much quicker with me behind.
Running.
And we finally got back, and actually, to be fair, halfway through, me just wheezing my way through the jungle, which was really humid. Someone said, "Would you like a horse?" I was like, "Yes, I would."
Could you not go on the back?
No, I couldn't, because of the way he was sitting, because of his leg. It was just so. It was hilarious, and then I had to drive him to and also driving in Colombia. I'm not that comfortable driving in foreign countries, and he was sort of the designated driver, and I had to
take over.
And it was petrifying, but it was really, it was.
I think you're very brave.
I think that
outward bound training that you got at Gordonston came into use.
Yes, plus ça t'en veut.
Plus ça t'en veut. Exactly. I was going to ask you your next question, which is, what's your most unexpected travel experience, which could probably be that as well. But anyway,
well, do you know what? Funnily enough, it sort of is related to that. I think, obviously, going to a school like we went to, it's an incredible experience, and I think that boarding schools generally get a pretty bad reputation, and particularly our school, thanks to the Crown, really stamped on that. And boarding school's not for everyone, and a lot of people have experienced not fantastic things, but which I could also argue that a lot of people at different schools have experienced. They haven't had the best of time. As I said earlier, because my mother traveled so much for work, we sort of felt like the potential of a boarding school might be a good option for us. And I was an only child. Although I have siblings on my father's side, I was essentially an only child, and it was just me and her. And I think she felt that it would have been nice to be around other people of my own age. But at the end of the day, I begrudgingly went up there, and you have to sort of spend 3 days there, sitting your exams. And at that point, I really didn't want to go to a boarding school. I wanted to be with my mother. And so the very first day, I was determined to not get into the school. So I flunked the exams. I pretended I didn't know what 2 + 2 was, and that was 5. And that's how my whole first day of exams went. And I was up there at the time because I was trying to get a scholarship there, which I ended up luckily getting. And so the next day I was walking around this school, and it really is like Hogwarts. And I sort of fell in love with the school, and so then I was trying really hard on my exams the next day
to make it up
because I knew I wouldn't, my first day of exams. But having said that, I would say that our school is more focused on outward bound than it is on academics.
I was going to say, when I went, I didn't even have to do an exam. It was like, oh, you're a girl. Yes, you're in.
Yeah, because you were the first.
Yes, first cohort of girls going there. So there were sort of 5 boys to every 1 girl. So you had a really good time. Even if you were a real dog, everyone was like, yay, there's a girl here. Marvellous. I had a fabulous time. And I did not want to go. My father showed me on the map where it was, and I was like, what have I done wrong? Oh, my goodness. Oh. And my sister and I went up for our interview, and we saw all these boys in their kilts and their shorts, and I thought, no, this is wonderful. Marvellous.
This is right up my street.
Right. But you're right. It is more about the whole person. And I think that is what is fantastic about it.
Yeah.
It finds what you're good at, and it really helps grow your confidence in that.
Completely. And I think that the ethos of the school, which is sort of centered around community service, and you know, all of us had to join a service, and I was part of the Coast Guards, and we would literally go out and search for people that had gone missing off the coast.
So you did all the abseiling, things like that. Very cool.
Yeah, and you know, but you know, something that we did often was trekking in the Cairngorms in the Scottish Highlands, and I think before then, you know, my experience of travel had always been in hot countries and by the beach, and I'd never really explored much of the UK, and so I think I was really overwhelmed with the beauty of the Scottish Highlands. And we were so lucky that we regularly would spend 3 or 4 days camping and walking and camping and walking and camping. So I think for me, that was probably quite a pivotal moment, you know, in my life. Like my love of walking
comes from
there, and yeah.
Being at one with nature. Yes, fantastic.
Exactly. You know, just little things like, you know, filling up your water bottle, you know, from the stream, and seeing wildlife, right, you know, walking right by you on where you're camping, and obviously we were all a big group of friends, and it was, you know, it was really fun, just cooking frozen peas.
Yeah, it really was great fun, and those cold water baths, showers, jumping into the North Sea on cruise. Nowadays, you know, if you go to the hairdresser, they say, would you like a cold rinse? I say, no, thank you, I've done that. And all this cold water plunging, no, I've done that 5 years of my life. Don't need to do it anymore.
Oh, gosh. I mean, it must have, that was the cold runs. I think by the time I'd got there, we didn't do that anymore. I think I probably had an easier experience than people.
I think so. The boys actually had to do it with no tops on, even in the snow when I was there. We were very lucky. We wrapped our duvets round us, got ticked off, and then went to bed. But anyway, it is a marvellous place. And Scotland is so beautiful. There is the most beautiful hotel that's opened called the Fife Arms. Have you heard of that?
No.
So it is so beautiful.
Oh, gosh.
Really is. If you want to go back to Scotland, that's my top tip.
I was just there 3 days ago in Aberfeldy.
Oh, were you? Were you filming there?
No, I wasn't. I went with a group of friends who were all fishing.
Oh, lovely.
And it was my first experience, my first and last experience, because I found the whole thing really, really traumatic. and of course I was, you know, these are keen fishermen that I went with, and it was my first time, and of course I was the only one that caught a bloody fish, and I absolutely...
Did you put it back?
Yeah. I was like, oh, this is not for me. I don't know how anyone can do this. This is just not a sport. And I was crying. I was crying my eyes out when I saw this thing. But we were in Aberfeldy, and, you know, just Scotland in general is one of my favorite places to visit, and a place that I just, there's always something to do, and it holds a very, very special place in my heart, because I spent 5 years there.
Mine too. It really does. What is your most underrated or overrated travel experience?
I was filming in Atlanta, Georgia, about 4 years ago, and I spent about 4 months there. And I had an image of what I thought Atlanta would be, or, you know, a city in America, and a bit like what I was explaining about with Medellín, that it's a city that has an incredible amount of history to it, and it has sort of reinvented itself, and there is an energy and a buzz to the city, and it feels incredibly new in a way, and that anything is possible in this city. It almost feels like utopia. It felt like utopia to me, and it's called the City in the Forest. because, and that's another thing. I didn't have any clue that it would be so green. The city. I thought it was, you know, an industrial
built
city.
up.
Yeah. And obviously because of where Atlanta is situated, it sort of connects the South to the rest of America. So it's perfectly situated. So a lot of, what's the word? Transport. It's a transport hub. But they have transformed the rail lines into, a lot of the rail lines called the Belt Line, which has now become pedestrianized. So it connects, I think, 40 or 50 neighborhoods together. Oh, wow. So you're able to walk. Otherwise, you're traveling on the highway to get to all these neighborhoods. But it has such an incredible art scene. The music, you know, the jazz music, and obviously the civil rights history. That's the birthplace of Martin Luther King. But I think I was expecting something else, and there's not a whole bunch of American cities that anytime I go to somewhere new, I go, oh, do you think I could live here? Could I live here? And Atlanta for me felt like a city that I really could live in.
Really,
and it was such a wonderful mix of people. It reminded me a bit of of London in a way. I love the mix that we have in London, and I don't know whether it's because I'm mixed race, you know, that wherever I go, I sort of stick out a little bit. And you know, when I went to places like Brazil or a lot of places in South America, I didn't. And it was such a new experience to me because everyone sort of had the exact same skin color. So I feel more at home in places that have a, you know,
cosmopolitan.
That have a good mixing, let's say. So yeah, I think and the people of Atlanta are very proud of who they are. And the transformation that they've had. And I think that any sort of place is made by the people. And it really has a beating heart that is being created by the people that live there. So it feels very rooted in their history, but with this incredibly alive energy to it.
How interesting. I've never been. I always think of Atlanta, Georgia as Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Isn't that where it was, Atlanta burning down?
Yeah.
I haven't ever been. Did you ever live in Ghana, actually?
I did live in Ghana. I lived in Ghana after I finished university. I moved to Ghana for 2 years. And I was working with my brother, who's a film director and has a production company, and I was working behind the camera with him. And I to be honest, I thought I was ready to live there. I absolutely fell in love with a country that to be honest, I didn't really know very well. And my love for the country grew over the years. But when I was young, I didn't really want to go there, and that had a lot to do with my relationship with my father, which is part to do with another one of your questions. But I think it's very important for people that have roots in different countries, or one of your parents are from another country, to visit it, and if you can, live there, because obviously living somewhere and visiting it, you have a completely different experience. But Ghana is an incredibly open and hospitable country, and the people are so friendly and warm and happy in many ways. You know, there is the Ghana or the Africa, let's say, because obviously all countries in Ghana, in Africa, are sort of lumped together, and the narrative of Africa is this sort of poverty-stricken, continent, which is obviously partly true, but it's not the whole story. And I think if people went to, let's say, Ghana, they would be quite shocked at how different the country is to what they've been told. Yeah. And everyone is really proud to be Ghanaian, and again, it reminds me of something. There's something that's happening in this country, which I felt, like I said, in Atlanta, and there's a change of narrative that's happening.
I think I had Simon Sebag Montefiore on the podcast, who's a friend, who's a historian, and he absolutely loves it. And he said, look, I'm even wearing my belt from Ghana. And he had his Ghana belt on,
really?
Which is all lovely colours and things.
Yeah,
he adored it there.
Yeah, and it's you know, these places have such a rich music history, and music and dance is the same as eating for, let's say, us. You know, if music is on and you sort of don't dance, it's sort of like, what's happening? Didn't
okay? You work on the X Factor over there?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I worked on the X Factor when I was there.
Were you a judge?
I wasn't. No, I wasn't. I was a producer. I was a producer. Oh God, that was really, really fun. That was a really fun time, and also that was a fun time for me because I was connecting to my family, who I knew, but I didn't really know that well.
How brilliant. Yeah. So let's go on to food and drink. You're talking about dancing and food and drink. Food and drink is so part of our lives and part of travel. Mm-hmm. What do you like eating? Where do you like eating? What's your best meal, your best drink? Let's just talk about food and drink and travel.
Yeah, I mean, I think just food and drink, that is just the most important thing in my life to me. And I'm a very keen cook, and I cook a lot of Greek food because that's what I was brought up on. Yeah. My mother is a fantastic cook, and as I said, I spent a lot of time in Greece, so I'm very familiar with that cuisine. And lucky for me, my husband's Italian, so his cooking is top notch,
fantastic,
top notch, and we've obviously spent a lot of time in Italy in recent years discovering different places. But I think for me, when Mum was sometimes on these business trips, particularly when I was older, and she didn't, you know, I wasn't like 4 anymore, and she didn't take me on the holidays, and she sort of wanted me to be with people my own age and just have a proper sort of summer holiday. Her closest friends had a house in the island of Spetses. Which is in the Saronic Islands. It's Saronic Islands. It's right next to Hydra.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
And I would spend my summers with them, and they had this beautiful, very simple house. And there was they had a huge family. There were about 30 of us, 30 of them. And I would be dropped off at the beginning of summer, and they had this beautiful outside courtyard with a very old sort of built-in barbecue, and it was under a pergola with like lemon groves. Perfect. And it was about, you know, a 5-minute walk to the beach. Yeah. But the one thing that was, I guess, hard for me was that I did want to be with my mother, but she would come for 2 weeks. I think it was just about 2 weeks of the summer holidays, and so it was sort of a whole ritual that would happen when she would arrive. And Spetses is an island where there are no cars allowed, so you walk, or there are also horse and carriage. And obviously there are some taxis, but only certain amounts of taxis are allowed on the island, and now you can like moped around. So when I knew my mum was coming, my auntie Eleni would take me to where the ship would dock, and we would be there so early because I was so excited, and the foghorn would start going, and you knew that the ship was just coming around the bend. Mm-hmm. And I was standing on the jetty, just patiently waiting for this ship to arrive and for what do you call the thing that comes down? But the thing that comes down, and then you just see this onslaught of people coming off the ship, and it was mayhem. You know, Greek ports are just manic and very, very hectic. And I'd be looking for her through the crowds, and eventually I would see my mum coming up, and I would speed towards her, and it was just a really beautiful moment for me, and I would be so happy. Anyway, so we'd get her onto the horse and carriage, and we would always take a horse and carriage back to Auntie Eleni's house. There was this tradition that when my mum arrived and we went back to Auntie Eleni and Uncle Elias's house, that Auntie Eleni had cooked uvetzi. Mm-hmm. And uvetzi is a slow-cooked beef in a tomato sort of stew with nutmeg and cinnamon and all sorts of things for about 3 or 4 hours, and then later it's mixed with orzo. And for me, that was probably a dish that I now
make
cook,
it?
but I associate it with my mum's arrival.
Oh, lovely.
And my auntie would always put that on, and it was just this sort of wonderful event, and the whole family would sit around this table, and you know, mum would be next to me, and even now it just makes me a bit tearful, because it was when I felt most at peace, and I was just so happy.
Lovely.
And obviously Greek cuisine, just I don't think there's a better cuisine. Obviously my husband begs to differ. He's like, I'm sorry. I think it's universally agreed that Italian food is the best. And to be honest, Italian food, and now later on in my life, we've actually been exploring Italy a lot more, and
where's he from in Italy?
Bologna.
Oh, fantastic. The city of food, isn't
I know,
it?
exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly. And they have this wonderful dish in Bologna, which is gramigna which is a type of pasta with sausage ragu. There was this restaurant that we went to that was called Meloncello, I think, where they just make this incredible ragu. And actually, in some ways, it sort of reminded me of this experience with
your mum.
Yeah. And I remember being so happy sitting opposite, and this time, so in love. And I generally like quite simple food, in the sense that I don't like too many things messed with natural ingredients. If you've got good produce, you don't need to doctor it up too much. That we do have, if you've got tomatoes from here, you better hope that you put some different things in it. But if you have good produce, you don't really need to do much. In this particular dish, the sausage ragu reminded me of the uvetzi, and I was sitting with Gabriel, and I just remember being so in love in his homes, in his hometown, and he was, taking me around, and we're both massive foodies, so a lot of our trips will be decided on where the best, where we're going to eat. And obviously we're very lucky with Bologna.
But I was going to say, Charles Dance was on this podcast, and he loves Bologna, and he said there's a whole road which is just food.
Yeah.
And I've never been to Bologna, but he said you have got to go. What is your best travel tip?
I find to not plan too much. I think you should have the bare bones of your trip, but I think you should have leeway. When I've been in countries that, for example, Medellín, I really, really didn't want to leave the city. For some reason, I wanted to stay, and you sort of feel, oh, well, I'm in Colombia, so I have to go and see another place. I have to go to Cali. I have to go do salsa in Cali. And we made the decision to leave, and it really bugged us It really, really annoyed us. And I made that mistake again. I mean, we were in the island of Siphnus. Have you been to Siphnus?
No.
Oh gosh, that is very high up on my list of places that people have to visit.
Is that Greece?
Yeah, that's Greece. That's in the Cyclades, the Cyclade Islands. And when you're sort of Greek island hopping, you feel like, you've got these 2 weeks. I must spend 3 days there, and then I have to go here, and then I have to go there. And again, we left and we went to this wonderful island called Milos, but we didn't want to leave Siphnus. We so wanted to explore more of it. So I think that would be one of my top tips. If you want to stay in a place, obviously it depends what length of trip you have, stay there. And
explore and enjoy.
It's exactly. And also, I think that's something that I find quite useful is when you do sort of touch down in these places, is to go. There are lots of free walking tours. And I don't know what the difference is with a free walking tour, why free walking tours are more, I have found more interesting than a paid walking tour. By the way, obviously on these free walking tours, you tip at the end, and it works out it's the same. But there's something about when you first get to a place, getting your bearings, and someone by foot, you're understanding the culture and a little bit of the history. I think that's something that Gabs and I have recently sort of do quite a bit. A lot, yeah. We do quite a long walking expedition. And obviously for us, we're just incredibly guided by food, by restaurants. And he's fantastic at that. And he actually gets a lot of tips from Reddit.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of, and he's sort of never wrong with where we've gone. So that must really work.
That's a good travel tip.
Yeah.
Reddit. Absolutely. So what is your most poignant travel experience or travel?
Yeah, I think, as I said, that, I lived in Ghana for a couple of years after I went to uni. But before that, I had a sort of strained relationship with the country. And there was one particular trip that I went, and my dad said to me, "Would you like to come to my home village where I was born? It's about 3 hours away." And I said, "Yeah, okay, all right." Fine, if you want me to go. And we got to this place which is called Keta, it's the Volta region, and it's a tribe it's the Airway tribe. And there are about 87 or 8, I can't remember, like 80 different languages in Ghana, although English, most people speak English, but there are 87 different tribal languages depending on where you're from. And Keta is right on the border of Togo. And interesting, when you do that DNA test or something.
Yeah.
I had 49% Togo and Benin rather than Ghanaian, which I thought was so interesting. And I think it's because we're
right on the border.
Right on the border. And my father took me to his home village, and I met the extended family, like great uncles and all these sorts of people, and we were all sitting on the beach, because it's on the beach, and it's this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beach, and the sun was sort of setting, and the fishing boats were coming back in. And everyone in the community come and help pulling the fishing boats back in. So we pulled the fishing boats, and my father said, "Come on, get in the water." We will pull the fishing boats back on. They're these beautiful, really old boats that have really unusual names like Patience and Grace, usually quite religious names or what have you. And the fishermen came off, and my family are there, and my father's there, and he asked me, because he was a brilliant musician, and he could sing very well, and he was a very good actor as well. And he asked if I could, do you want to sing with me? And I said, yes, well, sure. he said, do you know Lean On Me? And I said, yeah, I do know Lean On Me. So we just stood up and started singing Lean On Me, and we were just on the beach, and it was just sort of kind of strangely beautiful. And then people started drumming, on the beach, and my father got up and started doing a dance that's called the Agbaja, which is a traditional airway tribe dance. And I was very shy, and I was really embarrassed because, everyone can dance there, just everyone can dance there. And I just was so scared to look like an idiot because it's a very subtle movement, this dance. And you can look like a chicken if you don't know how to do it. And I really didn't want to look like a chicken in front of my family and the wider community. And I did get up and I did look like a chicken, and it was fine. And everyone, I did, but they were all like, oh, Rosalind, look at you, or you can't dance. Or I was like, oh God, this is so frustrating. I have to learn how to do this dance.
How wonderful.
And these fishermen had brought fresh lobster. They had caught fresh lobster. So we were sitting on this beach and we just cooked the lobster on the beach. And we had a bit of lemon and a bit of, and we just were there. And after that, I had a journey back to the capital with my father. And it was, as I said, it was a 3-hour journey. And on that 3 hour, on the way, I didn't actually share a car with him. I went down separately. And on the way back, I shared a car with him. And that car journey, and obviously the experience that I'd had in his home village, was such an incredibly pivotal moment for me and him. And it completely changed our relationship. And his love for Ghana, he was a politician. And I realized, I think his first love was probably Ghana more than anything else, and his vision for Ghana. And how much I learned from him in that short space of time about the culture and about the people. And he said to me that I would love, what are you doing after university? Like, what are your plans? He's like, well, why don't you come and live here? Come and live with me. Come and live with the family and understand where you come from and be a part of the community. But it was poignant because that was the last time I ever saw him alive. Oh, no. And he had prostate cancer and he actually died the following year. But it's after that moment, we spoke every day, and it was such a bittersweet end to our story. And I'm so happy that I managed to have I managed to have that experience with him. It matters to me, and I knew it mattered to him. And
that is the most lovely story.
Yeah.
How wonderful. I'm so sorry that he did die a year afterwards, but how wonderful you had that magical moment.
Exactly.
And that he wanted you to go and spend time with the family. And then you did.
Yeah. And I did it without him. And obviously I honored that. And I went to, I got to know even my father through my siblings, who obviously spent a lot of time with him. And it's a constant quest, particularly if you don't know your father well. I think what you mourn is the possibility of what could have been, rather than a bunch of memories that you have. It's what could have been. So
well, I think that's a most beautiful story, and thank you so much for sharing it. And having watched Missing You last night, you could have played that character, or you did play that character very well, because your father obviously wasn't part of your life. Very interesting. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And I also asked you to bring a photograph. Did you bring any photographs?
Yes.
And can you tell us about the photo or the photograph, and what does that mean in your life and about travel?
I've picked a photo that there's actually no one in this photo that I know. And it's of the crystal clear water of Spetses Island, with the rocks in front of it, and you can just see the small opening to the wider sea, and you can literally see the stones under the water, with the boat just bobbing gently and a couple of people just dotted around in this incredibly calm water. And I've picked this photo because for me, Greece is my home. And I go there every single year without fail. And particularly the Greek islands have, represented a place that I have my happiest memories from. The Greek people are just so unique and hospitable, and really adopted me as one of their own. And I there's not a world in which I don't visit this country.
It's a gorgeous photograph, and I love Greece. It's such a wonderful place. Does your mother come with you to Greece still?
She does. I mean, she goes at least like 4 times a year. I obviously, because of work, and it's a little bit, it's tricky to plan things. But she spends her 5 weeks. She has 5 weeks, and she goes to the island of Chios, which is very close to the Turkish border. But I don't generally go to that island. I used to go to that island when I was younger, but Gabs and I sort of tend to go to different islands now. And I think my ultimate, when I was young, my dream was that I'm going to have a place on one of the Greek islands. Yes. And that's a real hard pick.
Yes, which one?
That would be really, really difficult. But then there's also something really nice about having the freedom to go.
Because if you do have one, you have to go back there all the time.
Well, exactly.
So just go to lots and lots of different islands.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, what's next for you, and where are you going next? So where are you going next, and then what's next for you, work-wise? What are you doing?
Where are we going next? I think, although I spent 6 months in China.
Oh, wow.
Because I studied Chinese and Spanish.
Yes, Chinese.
Really random. My partner really wants to explore, other places like Vietnam and South Korea, that sort of a place, those sort of countries I haven't really seen much of. I've done a little bit, but not enough. But to be honest, I'm also really, really enjoying exploring Italy. And we actually had our wedding in Greece, which was hilarious because people were like, "Well, he's Italian. Why didn't you get married in Italy?"
You said no, but
the
Greece
reason why
the
reason why I sort of pushed for Greece was actually to do with I think a lot of British people usually for a holiday would pick Italy, France, or Spain before they pick Greece. And I was so desperate for people to experience Greece. And on the flip side of that, because I've spent so much time in Greece, I never really went to Italy. I never really did what people used to do, go to France or Italy. So now I'm experiencing that with Gabs. What a better way, he's Italian. So we're just going to do lots of Italy.
I've got lots of hotels in Italy. I can send you to wonderful places. We will talk about that next. And what are you doing work-wise?
Well, I can't say what I'm doing work-wise. Unfortunately, it hasn't been released, but I'm doing a very, very exciting project that I am really looking forward to, but I can't tell you anything about.
Well, I can't wait to see whatever it is next. And is there another Slow Horses coming up?
Yes, there is.
Oh, I'm so happy.
So we just wrapped on season 6. So that's 2 seasons.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So we've watched 4.
Watched 4.
So there are 2 more. Oh, it's so fantastic, isn't it?
Great,
I just love it. I had Leslie Manville on the podcast, and so we were talking about Gary. He's so fantastic in it, isn't
brilliant.
He really, but all of them, everyone is fantastic in it. There's nobody who's not. Oh, I'm very excited. So when we finish doing this, I'm going to ask you what happens, and I know you won't tell me. Rosalind, it has been so wonderful to meet you and to go around the world with you. Thank you so much for joining me. I've loved having you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.